Recorded live with no studio audience in the city that usually goes to bed by about 2 a.m., although, to their credit, they often get up fairly early as well. It's time for The Long Shot podcast. Tonight, the Happy Birthday Amber episode. And now, please welcome the hosts of The Long Shot, Amber Kenny and Sean Conroy.
Welcome to The Long Shot. I'm Sean Conroy. Also with me on the show, Amber Kenny is here.
Hi.
And as you can see behind me and behind Amber, this is an unusual, well, let's do this.
Whoa. Daytime.
We are recording in the daytime, so it's a little bright, but hopefully things won't be that different, you know?
Right. Sun's out. Podcasters are out. I don't know.
Let's talk about, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you for accommodating me. We were originally going to record tomorrow evening, and Tim, anyway, it's whatever. We're getting into the new ship, but him and his family are here they live in upstate New York now, and I was going to go see them. They're staying at his parents' house in Ventura. And I was like, if it's at all stressful to get back in time to record this, that would be dumb. So I would rather just get it done.
No, that doesn't make any sense. It's not good to have deadlines when you're doing something for joy.
Correct.
It sucks the life out of it. I am getting sick, so
No.
I'm glad to feel that way. I woke up this morning with a very sore throat, and that's great. Also, we should mention that what a delightful time to be suffering from this pandemic, because there is a new variant floating around.
Ah, yes.
Which is a lot of fun. The Omicron variant. We don't know yet whether that's going to be better or worse than the Delta variant. If it's better than the Delta variant, it will die out very quickly because the Delta variant will supersede it. But if it supersedes the Delta variant, it will cause a whole big new uproar, which I guess it already has. That's the other thing about this, is that it's great to have no data because it gives people plenty of room to speculate.
Mm-hmm. It looks like I'm never going back into the office at this rate.
Right.
Like every time it's like, it's going to be this month, like a new variant pops up.
Right. And yeah, you're not going back to the office. The world is never going back to the way it was. Like
right.
It's, the one is like a tiny version of the other because things have just been so weird for so long and they continue to be weird. So that's good. That's good. And it's good for me to feel sick around this time. So let's talk about, I feel like we have to address something that's just kind of the elephant in the room, right?
Okay.
Which is that you and I saw each other in real life.
We saw each other in person. What the heck?
It was crazy.
It was crazy.
It was insane.
You came here. You were probably in this room at one point.
I definitely was. In fact, I got the grand tour. I got shown the entire apartment, which was very exciting. Because how many times have you been to my place? And there's still many nooks and crannies in this apartment that you've never seen.
No, I never want to. It's like, like what? It's just a room full of blood and like. What was that?
You're talking about my blood room? Yeah.
Where you couldn't get the blood off the key. Isn't that a fairy tale? She was told she was allowed anywhere in the castle except one room.
Bluebeard's wife.
Yes.
And she had to open that one closet, and things went south.
There's like multiple rooms, I would say, in your apartment. I haven't been in. Right. At least two.
And you've been here 100 times.
Right. Over 12 years.
Right. And I was in your place for like 4 minutes and you're like, do you want to see the rest of the place?
Well, so many, sorry if that was weird, but
no, it was great. I loved it.
To set the stage for everyone, I had a birthday party and I was torn about doing it or not, but I decided to do it. I only invited people who were vaccinated and, if they felt comfortable. And again, it might have been the wrong choice. You're feeling sick now. I don't know, but
no. I feel like my sickness is too far. Like it was over a week, or
it was a week ago today. Yeah.
I don't think this is related.
But so many people who came in were like, wow, well, there's so many things to talk about this party. Sure. But so many people, I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you forever. And it's like, oh, right. I haven't seen
anyone.
Right. Yeah. It's not that notable. Right. But I mean, it is notable, but it's going to be a universal notable.
Well, it's a new version of the old SNL sketch, right? That SNL sketch where they would be like, how did you get here? Well, I took the 101 to the 5 to the whatever.
The Californians.
The Californians. And now there's a version that's like, this is weird.
Right. When's the last time I saw you? It was probably 2019.
Right.
But so many people, I moved here in the pandemic. So many people who walked in were like, oh my God, show me everything about your apartment. So I started being like, okay, I'm going to show everyone about the apartment when they walk in.
No, that's a normal thing to do. It's very kind. And, I was interested to see the whole place. I just thought it was funny that I've been to your place now once for a brief period of time. And I know the entire lay of the land.
Yeah. And you got to meet Smudgy.
I spent some time with Smudgy. Smudgy and I, Smudgy was, I would say Smudgy was, I won't use the word thrilled, but he was definitely excited by my showing up.
Entrance, yeah. He's vocal
quite
too.
A moment. I walked in the front door. I wasn't sure if I was in the right place.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Passed a number of parties on my way there, and then there is, and you've described it, and it was as you have described.
A garden?
Yeah, like a garden with little
in your face.
Total burn on me.
You're like, a lawn? I was like, no.
You fucking destroyed me with that one. But it was dark out there, and I had to like reach over and open the gate to get in. And so I walked in and the doors closed and there's definitely people inside, but I had already passed like 4 or 5 different get-togethers. And so I was like, I hope this is the right place. And I opened the door and this little dog, Smudgy as it turns out, loses his fucking mind nonstop for like an hour.
No, not an hour.
Shouting at me for, who are you? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Why are you here? Are you in the right place? Are you in the right place? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Like just on to the point where the entire party just stops and turns and is like it's such the perfect entrance for someone like me who definitely wants that moment.
Attention.
Hey, everybody. So it was really quite a thing. But anyway, that was Smudgy, and I got to spend some time with him, hang out with him, and he tried to eat my plate at one point.
Oh yes, he will do that.
Which was my fault for leaving it on the coffee table, but immediately got it away from him.
He got a piece of peanut butter toast yesterday, and again, it was completely it's our fault for not training him to not do that, but also my fault because I just completely Jeff and Smudgy went for a walk and I was like reorganizing my closet and I was like, oh, I'll make a little toast, and I set it on the nightstand and just completely forgot about it, in a place where he can reach. And he came home and I was talking to Jeff and I was like, Smudgy's being really quiet, and where is he? And I look and he just has like peanut butter over his whole face, like crazed. I'm like, damn.
He looks like he's talking.
Yeah. Well, he definitely gets a manic look in his eye when he knows he's doing something he's not supposed to be doing. Like, I don't know. It's very funny. But yeah, thank you for coming. It was really, I had a really good time. It felt like growth or maturity, or I don't know but usually my birthdays I find like pretty depressing or stressful or both.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to like put people out, and then I also don't want to invite people and then they don't show up, and then I hate myself. Like it's always around Thanksgiving. It's been fraught my whole life, and for whatever reason, I just like let go and let God, and threw a party and didn't really freak out about it that much. Like I put work in it. I cleaned the house. We got drinks and snacks and stuff, but like
You had a theme.
I did. Mustard.
Which you're still following. Yeah. Everybody had to wear something mustard colored.
Yes. And our snacks.
Everybody did that.
I couldn't believe it. It was so sweet. And then, but yeah, I even just like the getting food, like I didn't recognize myself in the sense that in the past that would have been like, the anxiety levels, I would have been inconsolable
in terms of
just like making sure I had the right food and like, and I just was like, I'll get this and I'll clean the house. And I don't know, I had like an ease, like an unfamiliar ease about the whole thing. And I also just let go and let God even as it started, because
there is no God, by the way, you know that.
I don't know. As it started, you know, like the first guest that arrives, like that's always anxiety inducing, because you're like,
well, that's what I was going to say. That's always the biggest moment for me when I have parties is like, what if no one shows up? Like, I know the party was supposed to start at 8.
Yeah.
I got there it was definitely after 10, probably closer to 10:30. Like, I just was like, I ain't going. No, thank you.
I will not be the first one there.
No, of course not. And so, but that for me was always the moment where I was like, oh, and so what I would do when I had parties like that, and I may, again, who knows? You don't know. I'm not specifying whether I will or I won't. It's harder in this neighborhood. I used to have big parties on New Year's Day.
You have tough parking.
Yeah, you just can't. There's nowhere to park.
You can't casually like roll in.
So it's kind of cut down my please come to my house. Aside from the pandemic has cut into that as well. But what I would always do is I would call a couple of people and say,
like a pre-party almost.
Hey, can you come at 7:30 and we'll just hang out, and then whenever other people show up, they'll show up. That's
smart.
And that would reduce my standing around going, what the fuck?
Right. Well, and even when the first guest arrived, like I instantly was like, oh God, this might be really awkward and a horrible idea, because you're like, thank you for coming, one person. Like, this is a lot of pressure.
Okay, nobody else here. I'm out of here. Right. See ya. Yeah.
But I let that go. I don't know if it was maturity. I don't know if it's just like
you let God.
I let God of like, I'm going to have a good time. And I think I also in the past have spent so much energy worrying that other people aren't having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And I let that go because I was like, me worrying about them having a good time doesn't help them have a good time, A. And it certainly doesn't help me have a good time. So,
especially because the way you handle that is to go up to people and go, are you having a good time? Are you having a good time? What's going on?
Is everything okay?
I don't know.
So yeah.
1 to 10, 1 being worse, 10 being best. Where are you?
Do you hate me? So I let that go, and I was like, everyone's a grown up. If they're having a horrible time, they could leave. I don't need to lose my crap. And it was a nice mix of like old college friends, comedy friends, Abby, Jane. Like it was like, the greatest hits. I guess that's how a birthday party works. But
it was definitely stressful for me to see people.
Sure.
But also it was pleasant,
I would call that glowing praise for the party. Stressful and pleasant.
Yeah, that's what I look for in a party. That's what I'm always going for.
But it was I was glad I did it, is what I mean. I didn't like go to bed that night being like, ugh, I shouldn't have done
What
it.
a disaster.
And it all wrapped up like I think everyone was gone before midnight. Like it was like
Oh man, I sprinted out of there when I felt that it was coming down.
I don't want to be the first or last.
Yeah.
So it's a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And it was nice to talk to some people. I was talking to one guy who I did not know. And first of all, he was sitting way too close, like just because of the way the
couches are.
Yeah, and well, it wasn't. I was on a couch and he was on a chair, and the chair was too close to the couch, and it wasn't really his fault, but I was definitely like, "Okay, buddy, take a step back.
Who was
you can't step back on a chair." I don't want to get into who it was.
Okay,
but anyway, you know, we were talking about stand up and like, oh, is it weird to not? And I was just like laying it out how difficult it has been to not perform for a couple years or whatever. And, you know, I think this person isn't necessarily a comedy person. Mm-hmm. And so I don't think there was a full comprehension of really what I was talking about, like what that means, you know, like to not be able to, I mean, this sounds so absurd, but to not have that venue to express yourself for a period of years or going on 2 years.
And no real hope or sign.
Right. And so it's just a hard concept to get across to somebody when, you know, it's like, this has been my life for decades and all of a sudden it stops and I don't have that outlet anymore. And I'm like, clearly in my head, I'm talking and I'm like, this is not making any sense. And then I'm still talking and whatever. And I realize that I am now basically, as I'm talking to this guy,
doing stand-up
at him. I was like, so this is what I'm talking about, because I have all this stuff to get off my chest, but there's nowhere to do it. So now you are the receptacle for, you know. So anyway, that was, and it wasn't like I shifted. It wasn't like I was like, okay, now I'm going to start doing.
No, it just
it was like
into.
Yeah, it was like, oh, I'm barraging this guy.
I'm doing crowd work, and it's one guy.
Anybody else here from out of town? Sir, who's on the chair right next to me. So anyway, that was kind of funny. Not that funny. But it was great. It was great. It was great to see people, talk to people, connect with people, be around people. Because that's not a thing I do these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what else? Lots going on. Lots in the news, lots happening.
Well, what's going on with you? Or was that your checking in with my birthday party?
Yeah, that's all I have on my list is Amber's birthday. No.
It was just Thanksgiving. What's the deal with that?
What's up with Thanksgiving? Well, I honestly, I did nothing for Thanksgiving. I was here.
Same.
I thought about going down to San Diego. I have cousins in San Diego.
Same. I have an aunt. Like, this is crazy.
And my cousin Jill texted me like a week and a half ago and was like, come down, you know, and they're great. They're cousins I grew up with. I love spending time with them, you know, but they have kids that are teenagers. And God, fucking teens, man, they drive me nuts. No, I have a specific reason, which is that when I was a child, when I was growing up, my house, my family's holiday dinners was the island of misfit toys.
Yes, you have mentioned that before. Yeah.
My mother is an incredibly generous, thoughtful person, and would always make sure that people who didn't have somewhere else to go would come to our house. And so the dinners became about navigating the awkwardness between adults who maybe knew each other a little from these dinners, were older for the most part. And I don't mean older like my age now. I mean like 70s, 80s, at a certain point, 90s. There were people, and that was all they were about, was dealing with those people. So I am, and I don't see myself as one of those people, but I'm very self-aware of like, if I was a teenager, I'd be like, why the fuck does this asshole have to come?
Yeah.
Not that I felt that way when I was a kid, I did always feel a responsibility. I mean, you were talking before about like, I didn't feel a responsibility to making sure that everybody was having a good time. I did feel a responsibility at every one of those dinners to make sure that everything was okay and that people were having a conversation and there was stuff to talk about. I mean, it was like, as I look back at it, it was a performance venue for me, because if I was performing, telling a story or whatever, they could not be bickering with each other because they were all old, set in their ways, people who had nowhere else to go. And when somebody has nowhere else to go, sometimes there's a reason for that. If there were people who were there who were not people who lived, as I do, far from their nuclear family and they
just didn't have a relationship.
They didn't have somebody who was like, hey, come spend time with us, for a reason. And put a bunch of those people in a room together, and it's
boy, howdy.
So anyway, I thought about going down there, and then I was like, and I obviously I was not there last year or the year before, but I was like, I want to pick my spots, I'll go next year maybe, or the year after that. But these were people who every year for 30 years were at our house for dinner on Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter. And anyway, I just was very self-aware of that. And quite frankly, I am in a place right now where I am a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of work I am trying to do to get to the point. This is a weird thing to say, but I'm overwhelmed by the amount of work I'm trying to do to get to the point where I can do some work. In other words, I am working on so many projects on speculation for nothing, in hopes that at some point one of them will lead to a job. And I feel like every day I'm like, I have 90 things to do, and I do like one of them. And so I was like, okay, now I have a couple of days. And on top of which I'm also, teaching 4 days a week, which means prepping for all those classes. And, and I'm not saying I'm doing any more than anybody else, but it just has been a little bit overwhelming. So having a few days to go, I don't have anything to do but focus on this work stuff was appealing to me. So anyway,
you worked on Thanksgiving?
I did. Of course I didn't do as much as I wanted to, because I was like, I'm going to finish this script and then I'm going to start on this other script, and then I'll be, and I worked on the script I was supposed to finish that day a little bit, not as much as I wanted to, but I then went yesterday and finished that script, which I'd hoped to finish on Thursday. And so now I'm moving on to the next thing, and it felt somewhat productive,
That's great.
So yes, I did not go and spend a warm and cheery time with close, near, and dear ones, but I had planned to cook. I had a Cornish game hen in my freezer, and I was like, I'll cook that for Thanksgiving. And defrosted it, and it ended up just being too busy all day to actually do it. But I did that yesterday as well. So
nice.
Yeah, it was. It felt productive. It still feels somewhat productive. Like I still have a couple more days before anything starts up again. So, you know, I don't know if I'm making myself like if I just sound like a crazy person, but it's helpful to take a step back and just like work sometimes. You know,
totally, without like breaking it up with other responsibilities.
Well, one of the things I've realized that I have never been good at in any aspect of my life, and I have been thinking a lot about, because I've been teaching so much for I think for like 2.5 years now, nonstop, and at the end of every class, like I kind of take everything I do for granted at this point. Like I know much more now than I did when I started writing for TV 15 years ago or whatever, but I don't ever think about it. And what I started doing a while ago was at the end of every class, I say, if you guys have questions related to any aspect of process or business or whatever, you know, make a list and I'll try to answer some of those questions. And so it's gotten me into this headset of like thinking about all of that stuff.
Totally.
And what I wish I had done more of or done better over the course of my career. And there's, by the way, there's a long list of those things. But one thing that sticks out to me is just the idea of finishing things. Like, I have this idea. I have this
Never done it.
Yeah. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start and then I'm going to finish. And it's easy. It's so easy to start things. It's so easy to say,
it's
this
the
is
best.
a great idea. This is going to work out. This is great. But staying committed to it and seeing it all the way through and finishing it is a totally different thing and something that you learn so much from. Instead of going, well, you know, this isn't really.
It's not popping the way that I thought it would.
It's not 100% there. So, what if I did this thing instead? And of course, as I said, I have now. I'm trying to think. I have one thing I'm doing with a couple of production companies involving people in Ireland. Another thing with people in downtown LA, another thing with people who are somewhere here in LA. I don't know where they are. Another thing with another company in downtown LA, and then a fifth thing that I'm doing on my own, and then a sixth thing, which is that I'm just trying to, and I think I've talked about this before, I want to direct my own short film, which I'm planning to do in spring sometime. So that's 6 different things, and it's easy to allow each of them to distract from all the other ones.
Right.
So I'm at the point right now where I'm like, okay, I need to knock all of these things out and see if any of them play out the way I want them to, or move on to another thing.
Well, and what I do, I don't know if you are, if this is something that pertains to you as well, but like, I haven't done it in a while, but I would be like, I'm not doing enough. And so I would commit to an impossible amount of projects and then do them all half-assedly, you know, instead of like, and that way I also had, well, like, yeah, I couldn't put my all into it. I was doing all these other things. And so it's like, I don't know.
Well, and I think I am borderline that right now, although I don't think that's really what I'm doing. But I will say that several of these projects are stuff involving other people, and some
that
of them
helps. I always do better when I don't want to let other people down. I could let myself down, no problem.
Way easier to focus on the stuff for other people than it is to focus on the stuff that is just me going, this is what I want to do, because I'm only responsible to myself then. So if I am half-assing anything, and I don't think I really am,
that's great.
I don't think so. But if I am, it is definitely the stuff that I want to do, not the stuff that I'm doing with other people, you know? So anyway, it's been good for a few days here to sort of focus on those things and try to knock some shit out. Although, you know, then again, I have to do this whole rewrite of this script that I have, and I printed the whole thing out because, you know, I'm fucking old school. I work on paper. I don't work on electronic
with like
screen.
red lines and
Yeah. I literally, I'll just see if you can see this. Like,
oh, I like that though, where you could
I
could
cut
physically
pieces of the script apart and like post it up on the wall and move things around and whatever. But so I printed this whole script out yesterday, and I was like, I'll get up tomorrow. And then I woke up this morning and I was like up for 45 minutes and just felt so sick and was like, so anyway, I've done nothing today. But it's been a good Thanksgiving.
Good. Yeah, I have like a similar Thanksgiving experience, but also the exact opposite, where we were invited to my aunt's in San Diego, and I love her. She's incredible. She's the best. And she's an amazing cook. Like, her Thanksgivings are off the
bonus.
hook.
Yeah.
So, like a big part of me wanted to go and like to do a traditional Thanksgiving. But Jeff and I have also been just so sort of like run over by a truck by work that the idea of being in traffic for 2-3 hours with possibly a screaming dog, like
driving to San Diego, I can remember driving down there and it taking 5 hours the night before Thanksgiving or the morning of or something like that.
And so we kept saying that. We were like, if it was 1 hour closer, right, I think we would have done it. I just, but we had like the best day. There was nothing about it was traditional. We woke up, we did watch the parade as a family, but then we went for a long, long walk, all three of us, and to this park, and it was Thanksgiving, so it was completely abandoned. Mm-hmm. And so we let him off the leash and let him do like sprints, which he loves to do. And we came home and Jeff made like a really good pasta dish and we watched movies and went to bed. But like, it was another time, again, this is why I think I'm having like dramatic shifts internally that sort of change everything, but they're hard to express. But even last year, the year before, I would have been in a depressed spiral. Like, this is a depressing Thanksgiving, and it's sad that we're doing this. And
I mean, it's not, remember that the first Thanksgiving was Squanto showing the pilgrims how to bury pasta in the
right. But it was like, I loved it. I loved every moment of it. And I was extremely thankful the whole time that we got to do it our way and get fresh air and exercise and enjoy the beautiful weather and do it all relaxed. And like, we ate a lot and drank a lot, but not like, I never felt like Thanksgiving full. And that was also kind of a bonus.
Yeah. It was interesting also this year to learn for the first time, for me anyway, I don't know, maybe you already knew this, but how connected Thanksgiving was to the Civil War and trying to bring the nation back together after.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, apparently it was not a holiday up until then. And then I don't have specifics, but in 1863, there was a big battle and maybe it was Gettysburg. I don't remember, but
I was laughing because I thought you were like, I don't have specifics, and then you're like naming dates, locations, like, names. I was like,
but I'm probably getting them wrong. But it was definitely Lincoln who said, "Let's have a national day of Thanksgiving," and it was in like July or something. And then he had another one in November, And then at some point after that, and it may have been.
I heard it was in like October or something originally, and FDR moved it to November.
That's what I was going to say.
the
Yeah,
economy.
they made
for the shopping season.
the Thursday in
Because if you think about it, it makes no sense that harvest would have been in like the dead of winter.
But the original thing I was saying was it was about like
we're polarized.
Yeah, let's all come together. Let's and here we are.
Maybe we need a new Thanksgiving.
Shit's still going on. Yeah. Exactly. Couple of big civil rights, or not civil rights, but a couple of big murder cases this week, and that are very tinged with racial animus. But that's good. Like, I feel like, why shouldn't we be able to do whatever the fuck we want on holidays?
Right.
Right. Because there's definitely people that are like, so what are you doing? No, you can't do that. And I'm like, why can I not do that?
Right.
This is my life. I can do what I want.
Well, yesterday though, for dinner, we, Jeff went to Dupar's and got like 2 Thanksgiving plates, so that we had like the taste of it,
nice.
But it wasn't on Thanksgiving. I don't know. It was fun. There was something really fun about all of it. And exactly like you're saying, like it was on our terms.
Right. I think that's the most important thing to me, is like not feeling, because I definitely, I talked to my father last week and he was like, so what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And I was like, well, I'm not sure. And he's like, what do you mean you're not sure? You got to do something. You got to spend time with the family. And I was like, easy. Like, I don't.
Right.
It's okay not to, not because it's bad or anything, but I can spend the holiday how I want to. And so that's what I do. And it sounds like that's what you did too. Yeah. And I'm thankful for that, for both of us.
Yes, me too.
What else?
Well, I had this whole week off. I know that I mentioned that last podcast that I was going to, and it was awesome. Like, I needed it more than I even realized. And I didn't do much, in the sense that like my mornings pretty much still look the same. I wake up early with this guy and we go for a walk and I do my morning pages. I'm still doing them, by the way. I think I'm at like 6 months now, which is the longest streak I've ever had.
So self-reflective.
It might be why I'm so centered about throwing parties and having my own Thanksgiving. But so like the mornings look the same, but then I would like either just lounge around and watch something, like watch a movie. And again, in the past, that would have gotten me down like a spiral where I'd either just like couldn't stop watching TV, like addiction style, or I would have been doing it, but like beating myself up. Like, you're such a loser for doing this right now. Like, you could be doing something productive or something fun. And like, you've been dying for time off and this is what you're doing with it. But I would like watch a little bit of TV and then I'd get to a point where I'm like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And Smudgy and I went on these like outdoor adventures basically every single day, like different ones. Abby and I went for a hike on Tuesday together. We went to a park. On my birthday on Wednesday, we went to the beach. And
you went on a hike with Abby. Did you cast any spells while you guys were out there?
Not officially.
Need any talismans people to find and be scared by?
Yes. But
there's something in these woods.
And then I would come home and I would like consider, it would be like 2 or 3, and I'd take a long shower and usually take a nap. Like, again, it was just like I don't have a lot to show for the week off, but it was great. It was wonderful. It was a lot of outdoor time, a lot of exercise, but then a lot of rest. I felt like.
And if you had a lot to show for it, who would you show it to?
Well, I mean, I'm not writing 7 scripts or whatever, Sean. We get it.
I'm not saying I'm writing any of them. I'm feeling like I should be writing any of them. Feeling guilty about it.
But but yeah, and that's the key. Like I did all of that and never felt guilty for not doing too much or doing too much. Like I did it. It went too quickly, and truly, like my skin cleared up. Like I was like, oh, I'm stressed out about my job. Like it is very nice to not do it for 5 days. Truly. I yeah, it if anything, this guy is gonna be really upset come Monday because he's like, we don't just hug all day long and then we go for a 3-hour hike and then we keep hugging. Like, sorry, buddy, you have to be on your own. Like right now he's sleeping at my feet and he looks a little betrayed, I guess is the best word. It's like, I thought we worked this out. I thought we know what we do now, and this ain't it, mama. But yeah, it was great. And so I think that I have enough of I've been replenished enough to go back to work, and it'll be great, and I'll have a better POV. Just like when your gas tank is empty, it's tough. Any little thing kind of throws you.
Right. Definitely. So it's good to, write about it in your morning pages and then listen to the questions that you're asking yourself in your morning pages.
Yeah.
And then
it is good.
leave talismans around the forest so people can be scared. Hikers can be scared.
There's some strange thing at work here.
Oh, have you watched Get Back at all?
No, I haven't.
The Beatles documentary?
No.
We were watching that.
Oh.
And
certainly all the rage right now.
Well, yeah. It's good. It's very good.
I'm definitely excited to watch it. I definitely want to.
But we watched the first part because it's a 3-part situation, and on Thanksgiving night, and I was a little too drunk and a little too stoned. And I didn't realize, like, it's like ambient noise that two people may be having a conversation in that. So it's like it's not recorded like a movie where it's clear what I need to be listening to and what they're trying to communicate. And it was so stressful for me. Like, I know they're fine. Well, most of them actually aren't fine, but
half of them are dead. That's
what I was alluding to. But the project itself, I was like, guys, like, just work on the songs, like, get to it. I was stressing out for them, and there's so many just people around, just like walking around in the background, and I'm like, they're trying to write one of the greatest songs ever. Can you guys sit down? Anyway, we watched the second part last night, and I was able to be less emotionally like stressed out about it. But it's good. You should watch it. But
I think that's interesting. I mean, this is why I want to watch it too, because I've heard, or I haven't heard, but I've seen people have tweeted about how, like, there's a shot of like John Lennon bitching about something in the foreground, while meanwhile Paul McCartney is in the background basically writing "Get Back" off the top of his head.
Yes. It's crazy. There's a lot of. It's funny when they're like making fun of "Let It Be," and I'm like, they're like talking. They're like, "Let it be." And I'm like,
right.
Okay, wow.
But what I think is interesting about that, like, it's just like it's the creative process. Like, in other words, there is no way to go, okay, everybody, sit down
and make an album. Yeah.
Sharpen your pencils and let's start, and we'll be done in 2 hours. It's like, it is chaotic. I mean, I think back to the early days of the Swarm, the greatest improv group in the history of the world, and it was when we were sort of getting to know each other and really starting to find who we were as an improv team. And I mean, it's not we don't have a lasting legacy like the Beatles do, but
not yet.
By the way, those guys were all like 30 when they broke up.
It's crazy.
But I just remember early on we would show up. So we'd have a show. Let's say we had a show at 8:00, right? So everybody'd be like, let's show up at 6:30 and like warm up and be ready to go. And so we'd show up at 6:30 or 6:45 or 7 because we're all artistic people. So nobody's really paying attention to their watches, if anybody even has a watch. And back then,
no one had phones.
It was the very beginning of having a phone.
Fire was just invented.
Yeah. There was no way to get there because the buses didn't have wheels. There was no wheels.
There were buses, though.
There were buses, but they just sat there. It's like, why did we get on this?
You'd get on and then you'd get off of it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Next stop, same stop. But anyway, we'd get there and there was one person. And so we'd get there and people would be doing bits and voices and whatever.
Uh-huh.
But
it's also nervous energy, like, and it manifests in different ways in different people.
The point of being there was supposed to be, we're gonna warm up. In other words, we're gonna do theater warm-ups, like we're gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're gonna do all that. And we just didn't do that. We like just, it was like, hey, nice shirt. Oh yeah, you like my shirt? I like your shirt. Hey, let's do a shirt. Like, that's a bad example, but
right.
But
was that your warm up?
But this is what I'm saying. Like, there was one person there who eventually left the team who was like, you guys, we need to stop and warm up. Come on, guys. Everybody stop what you're doing and let's warm up.
And you're like, we are warming up. It just doesn't look like it.
We weren't even aware of it, but like, it just was happening, This is
our process.
Yeah. And anyway, so I do want to watch it and see, just because, has there ever been a more impactful group of people creatively in any form in the history of the world? Yeah, lots, I'm sure, but I can think of them off the top of my head.
It's also fun to watch because once, maybe 10 years ago, Jeff said that I was a Ringo. We were at, like, which one are you? And he said I was a Ringo, and it hurt my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Because nobody wants to be Ringo.
Very steady beat.
But his defense at the time, 10 years ago, was like, everybody likes Ringo. Like, there's nothing controversial about Ringo. He's just, like, likable. Anyway, watching this documentary, I'm like, Ringo is an icon. I am proudly a Ringo. Because, like, everyone's, like, fighting, and he's just, like having a good time, wearing cool clothes. Like, like, I think he's the most aware of the cameras because he mugs to the cameras a lot. This is just a theory that I have, that he's like, I'm not going to say shit on camera that could get me in trouble. Like, I will be neutral. Or maybe he just was a neutral guy. But, like, they're, like, hashing out fighting, and he's just like, wait, I don't know. Like, it's cool. He's funny.
No, I'm very wrapped up right now in two things, and I have to finish both of them before I can get back, which is I finally am watching The Mandalorian for the first time.
I've never seen it, yeah.
It's really great. Like, I really love it. And I just love the storytelling. I love the world building. It's so simple. It's so many things that I think are really good. Like, there's a moment in one of the episodes where I can't even remember what's happening, but they're on Tatooine, which is the home planet of Luke Skywalker from the original Star Wars movie, which had more impact on me than anything I've ever consumed.
Than the Beatles?
Yes, more impact than the Beatles. I think Princess Leia was kind of the Ringo of Star Wars.
An icon.
Yeah. Cool clothes, cool hair. But there's just a moment where whatever, they're on this planet and they come in and you just see, and it's the Sand People, the Tusken Raiders who were in the original Star Wars movie. They wear like crazy head coverings. You never see their faces, and they have like goggles built into their masks, whatever. And they ride these giant creatures, which I think are called bantas, and they're like huge, almost like elephants, but with giant like water buffalo horns. And those are basically their horses or their camels to get them through the desert.
Right.
So you come in on one of these bantas, and there's just a sand person like brushing the thing's teeth. And then you pan over and whatever important thing is happening. And I just love that so much. Like this tiny little nonsensical detail, but like, yeah, this is their daily life.
They have to upkeep their bantas.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'm watching is this documentary on Hulu called City of Angels, City of Evil. And it's about all these serial killers in the 1970s in LA? Los Angeles. Yeah. Whoa. And it's, I mean, hard to talk about things like that as fun and delightful because they're definitely not, but it is fascinating. It is really
consumable.
And part of it is because, well, it's a couple of things. One is because there's a show on Amazon called Bosch, which is great, about a detective in Hollywood, written by a guy named Michael Connolly, who was a reporter for, I'm guessing for the LA Times, although I can't remember who he worked for, but did a lot of work as a reporter in the 70s and 80s before he became a crime novelist. And so all of his books are very experientially based on his stuff. And of course, he pops up in this documentary as a talking head. But instead of saying like, and so they had to figure out where the Hillside Strangler was. So this is what he says things in the documentary like, so you look into the abyss and the abyss looks into you. And then they cut to somebody giving you information,
Just speaking in riddles.
Yeah, just like very literary, like poetic, literary, horrible things. But the people who I think are the executive, or at least some of the executive producers or producers anyway, of the documentary, who are also in the documentary, are some of the detectives involved in those cases.
Oh, wow.
And I'm quite certain watching it that these are some of the people that he based this character Bosch on. Like you can tell, like there's one detective who he's definitely from Boston or somewhere right outside of Boston, even though he was an LA detective back in the 70s. And he's talking about, and he's like, yeah, it's been 44 years and I still can't get those victims out of my head. And he's like still crying about like, and, he talks about how he was too emotionally connected to these cases and, got very close to one of the families of the victims, and people told him that was inappropriate, but he couldn't help it because that's how. And then there's another guy, there's a guy, they had like several of these cases going on at the same time. And serial killer wasn't even a real thing yet at that point.
It wasn't even like a term.
It was kind of named then. They talked about him as like, I think they called them like mass murderers, which has now become a different thing. But serial killer was what they identified people as. Anyway, this one guy who just in physical appearance looked very much to me like this character as described in the books. Not Titus Welliver, the Hollywood version who's on the Amazon show, but the way the guy was described in the books, I was like, oh, that's who Bosch was based on, like the mustache, the hairline, the wiriness. He also, at one point, Connolly shows up and says, like, Tom Lang had already seen some horrible things in Vietnam. And that was one of the things about the guy in the books, where in the TV show, they changed it to not Vietnam because obviously that's too long ago. Now he's seen horrible things in Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah. But anyway, he tells this story about they're looking for a guy who's going around stabbing people on Skid Row. And they call him the Skid Row stabber, of course, because what else are you going to every serial killer has to have a name. And they figure out who this guy is. It's really interesting, the process they go through to figure out who he is, because he stops at one point. He's stabbing homeless guys in Skid Row, and then it stops. And they're like, why would it stop? Well, maybe it stopped because he got locked up for something. He was in jail, and that prevented him from doing this. So let's look at who was in jail from the period it stopped till the period it started again. Okay, that's 43,000 people. So how do we figure out, how do we narrow that? So it's really, and as they
it's like profiling.
It's before like DNA evidence was a real thing. Fingerprints were just becoming a thing, and they didn't have easy ways to get. Anyway, it's all very interesting, but
it was a great time to be a murderer.
You could get away with a lot of shit, but they figure out who this guy is, and they track him down, and he's in a movie theater, and they don't know what this guy's going to do. And he's sitting in this movie theater watching a movie. And so this detective goes and sits down 2 seats over from him, and he goes, hey, I think the guy's name is, this is not his real name, but it was the name he was using as the Skid Row stabber, because he was leaving notes. And the detective is like, hey, Luther, I know who you are. Do you know who I am? I'm a detective. I'm a policeman, and I'm going to arrest you right now. So what I'm going to ask you to do is stand up with your hands up. And if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. Do you understand me? Like in this movie theater.
And people are like,
fucking assholes. Hello?
That's insane. That's like a scene from a movie.
It really is. And that's why I was like, oh, that has to be the guy that is the most basis for this detective, because that's just such a crazy. So they ended up arresting the guy, and they got him, and it just is interesting in how a glimpse into how personally these guys take it, because all of them are still around. All these detectives from the 70s are still around, and they're all interviewed for this show. And part of it is because one of the scripts I'm working on has to do with serial killers in Los Angeles. So I feel like it's research to watch this too.
You can't afford not to watch it.
No, I can't. I can't afford not to subscribe to every streaming service. So, but anyway, once I finish both of those, I'm pretty close on both of them. I think Mandalorian, I only have a few episodes left, but I'll check out Get Back, because is it Get Back? Is it the name of the documentary?
I think so. I think it's like the Beatles : Get Back or something. But yeah,
Beatles : We're doing a documentary about the Beatles : Yeah, I don't want to watch that. That seems, I had a colonoscopy a couple of years ago, and I'm not interested. Anyway, so what else?
What else?
What else?
I feel like we covered a lot. Maybe it's a good time for a little break.
Yes.
Do we want to go right to parting shots?
Let's go right to parting shots. Let's do that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Amber, parting shots.
I will say I said too much at the beginning, and now I have nothing left. Taking time off is important. I also realize I want to reframe that a little bit. Like, I realize that I am incredibly privileged that I even have time that I could take off, that I have a job, that like I understand all of that is privileged, and I'm very fortunate to be in the situation I'm in. That said,
so many people just put their pens down for the letters they were writing. Yeah.
But that said, like, just
never mind. I'm not going to complain.
A week off, it's necessary here and there.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise. It really, really is. Yeah, I want to plan a bunch of like vacations in 2022, but I also, like, with the variants, like, it's very hard to make plans to do anything. It
really is. And I will tell you, I have a ticket to go back to New York at Smudgy. I have a ticket to go back to New York at Christmas time, and I'm already like, am I going to be able to do that? It's very frustrating. Because there is, I we don't know what's going to happen with this Omicron variant.
Wait, what did you call it?
Omicron.
Oh, I thought you called it Comic-Con.
You guys heard about the Comic-Con variant? It's making everybody
long lives.
They're getting superpowers. There is a commercial on right now. There's those horrible. I hate, commercials are always awful, especially when they think they're funny. And there's those Liberty Mutual commercials with the guy with the ostrich or the emu, I guess. And they're so unfunny. Like I hate that they're unfunny, and then also that the company commits to them for such a long period of time, and they make so many of them, and they're just beating you over the head with how unfunny. And I get that it's hard to be funny in 30 seconds, but it's possible. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they do have a recent one that is funny and of course it's connected to corporate branding, because it's those two. It's the guy with the emu, but he reads about Spider-Man. And because the new Spider-Man movie is coming out, so he's like, "Oh, Spider-Man, this is what this city needs: is more, more heroes." And he takes a spider out of, like, a giant spider out of a little glass box, and puts it on his arm so it can bite him. And he's like, "Ow!" And then cut to him being wheeled out on a stretcher just with a giant swollen face. And it's like, did it work? And that one did make me laugh, so I gave it up for them on that. That they finally got one hit out of 15 commercials they've made up to this point. I don't remember what I was even talking about.
I was just thinking, like, why were we talking about that? Yeah. I said you have to have a break.
Jesus Christ. Who the hell knows? Who the hell fucking knows? We'll have to go back and listen to it.
I know, and we're gonna be like, "Oh, right."
Maybe this is just another example of how I can't stand being away from talking in front of people and just being able to say whatever the fuck I want without connecting it to anything. What else, folks? Oh, have you seen those Liberty Mutual commercials? Just have a list of topics. Sorry. Do you have anything else for your parting shot?
No.
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. And the weather's been really nice. I'm sure it's global warming and horrible, but it's been really beautiful and nice.
So there's two sides to the coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I saw a play. That could be my parting shot. I saw a play so I've had a big week, weirdly. The day after my party, I had tickets for a matinee for the Pasadena Playhouse. Mm-hmm. And it was Barbara, Tess, Whitney, Lampy, and myself, the crew back together. And it was
Magic Mike the musical, I'm assuming.
I wish. It was so fun. Like, I came home so inspired and like jazzed, and but I don't know if it was actually a good play or not. I think I was just excited to be seeing theater.
I think it does shift your perspective. Yeah, you're like, holy shit, I am in a room with people who are performing.
And this is happening like right now. Yeah. And so there's a lot going on. It was like a hat on a hat on a hat on a hat. So it's a jukebox musical of the Go-Go's.
Right.
But the plot is like kind of like a children's theater fairy tale. Mm-hmm. But all of the dialogue,
like a witch going, "Our lips are sealed."
Kind of, yes. Mm-hmm. And princesses and a kingdom and all that stuff. But then the dialogue is all iambic pentameter, like straight up Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. And it's all genderqueer. And it's a dance party. They like took the stage away. And so we were just standing for the whole thing. And like there was a live band and we were dancing to the music. So there was like a lot of things happening.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And we're wearing a mask the whole time. And but I loved it. It was wild. It was crazy. One of my favorite drag queens in the whole world was in Alaska, so that was a thrill.
You've talked about Alaska before.
Yeah.
The drag queen and the place.
So yeah, seeing theater was, and I came home and I was like, I want to like make stuff and do stuff and perform, but then I haven't done anything.
Mm-hmm. You will
someday.
It's hard. It's hard to get stuff done. I am going to be performing sometime soon. I got asked to do a show, so I'm excited about that. That'll be in December sometime. And
fun.
This guy was like, "Do you want to do this show?" And I was like, "Please, yes." Yeah. But also to your point about seeing theater, I haven't. I mean, I saw a little bit of stand up. Eddie and I went a couple times about a month ago, a month and a half, 2 months ago. But that's the only thing I've seen during all this time. And I know that my folks bought tickets. This is hilariously on brand for my parents, where they bought tickets to see Come From Away.
Oh, yes.
It's a big Broadway musical about
9/11.
9/11.
Exactly what the feel-good show we need right now.
Right. Well, but I guess it is in a way.
It's like Yeah, there's a filmed version on Apple TV, and I started it
of the musical.
And I started, and then I was like, I turned it off immediately because I was like, this isn't how it's supposed to be seen. I could already tell. Like,
right.
Like I'm sure in the room it's like moving, but I was like, what? Like,
right.
Anyway.
But it for people who don't know, it's the story of like all the planes that were grounded in Newfoundland,
Nova Scotia or something, right?
Or Nova Scotia, wherever it was.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
But you're right. Somewhere that wasn't the United States. Yeah.
And somewhere that isn't used to having.
And the people took them in. They couldn't get back to the United States because every flight was grounded for a while after 9/11. So people took them in, and it's the story of the people who took them in and the people who were taken in, and not taken in a way, not taken.
Not like give me back my daughter.
Yeah. But
sound just got really weird. Anyway.
But anyway, so my folks, and it's complicated because I have so many brothers with there's a lot of moving parts as far as like, when are we going to do this? And when is everybody going to be around? And, this brother's going away for this period of time during Christmas, and I'm only there for a certain amount of time, and, all this stuff. But the reason I say it's on brand for my parents is rather than do all of this buying of tickets over the internet, which is what people do these days.
Oh, they're going to the box office?
They drove down to the theater. It was like, they drove down to the theater.
That's crazy. And even the people at the box office were probably like, what are you doing here?
This makes no sense. You realize this show is not for 2 months, right? Yes, we would like these seats this day, please. You want to just go in? It's happening right now. You can see it right now.
Nope.
Nope. I thought that was hilarious. And by the way, I talked to my father, I don't know, yesterday or the day before. He has now seen it 3 times, and this is the 4th time he's seeing it. Yes.
Wow. That's his Magic Mike life.
He's a fan. Yes. He's a fan. He did say, like, it is very uplifting. Like, it is really positive, I think that's why he loves it so much. But that said, what that reminds me of is that this week American theater lost one of the titans, right? Stephen Sondheim died. And I guess here's my question. Do you have a Sondheim relationship?
Like to Sondheim?
His work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I love Into the Woods. I've never seen Company live, but I love the music. Like, I listen to the album all the time. And he's a freaking genius. Did you watch the documentary, the 6 on Sondheim?
Sondheim? I watched a documentary, but I don't think it was that. I think it was one that came out before that, and I watched it a while ago.
It's great. Talking about Get Back and the creative process, like he talks about, Sondheim is a genius in ways that it's like hard to wrap your head around. Where he talks about each character, like the rhythm of the music relates to their specific character and their character path, and it changes as the plot goes on. And that's why he is good at what he does, because I think all of that informs us subconsciously. Like, we're not going around being like, oh, like his rhythm was like da 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 at the beginning, and now it's da 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 da. But it tells the story without us even hearing the story. I don't know. I'm not explaining it well, but I found it.
I get what you're saying, and I think that makes total sense. It's like that is something that he is conscious of that we are not, though it has an impact on us nevertheless. Right. And that's why he is considered the master at what he does. And
each show has a completely different, like, he's not writing songs in the style of Stephen Sondheim. He's writing songs in the style of the character that is telling the story. Like, he sort of channels each one. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I got to watch that. I'm just, he was 91. West Side Story came out in like the early 50s, and he's still working on, he died while he was still working on another musical, That's crazy. I also read a whole thing last night. I think they had a list of his 19 musicals that he had done. And what I thought was interesting, and I didn't look into it too closely, and I don't know that I ever will because I have other things to do.
Okay.
But going through, obviously I'd heard of a lot of them, and some of them were huge hits and did very, very well. Some I had not heard of. Some were failures, absolute failures, utter, complete meltdowns that he regretted or whatever. But that was fascinating to me because it was like, you just do the work, and it works sometimes and it doesn't work other times, but it's not up to you to decide, I'm going to only do great things. I'm only going to do things that are perfect. It's like, this is what I want to do. I'm doing it. Right. I did it. It didn't work. On to the next thing. It's going to be great. I hope. And
that project maybe taught you something that you brought to the next project that was more successful. Yeah. It's easy to see and to say from afar, but it's very hard to internalize that.
Right. But it just made me think about the fact that he is, like, whether you agree or don't agree, there are lots of people who are saying this is the greatest figure in the history of American theater. This is
You're doing a lot of big broad statements about everyone we talk about on the show today.
Well, the Beatles and Stephen Sondheim.
Right. I mean, you're not wrong. It's just
and Magic Mike. I mean, there's never been a better male stripper than Magic Mike.
It's the superlatives episode.
But like people are telling me that he is the greatest. But really, like, people are like, this is the 20th century Shakespeare.
100%. Yeah.
And yet, if you look at his career piece by piece, there are moments where people were like, this is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I hated this. It was awful. And that just made me think about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I'm saying.
It also takes a tremendous amount of strength of character and belief in yourself to not just be like, you're right, this was a piece of crap, I'm going to go be a candle maker. I don't know.
Yes, to not do that, or to go, you're right, this was a piece of crap, but this is not all I am. I'm also this, and here's what I'm going to do next.
No, that's what I mean. Like, it didn't shut him down. It motivated him, and that's impressive.
Right. It seems like it worked out. There's a great interview with Colbert that he did a few months ago that is worth watching.
I'll go check it out.
If anybody has YouTube, I don't know if that's
I can't afford it.
Streaming service that everybody has. Folks, this has been The Long Shot. It is a podcast. Go to iTunes, give us 5 stars, and leave us a review. Make it positive, unless it's going to be about.
Unless it's constructive.
Right. If you're just going to talk about how I always have blinds behind me, don't put that as the review.
Do people say that?
No.
Like, who cares? No.
Why does he always have blinds behind it? It doesn't make any sense. Open the window.
Jamie?
All right. We'll see you next time.
All right.
There's trouble here, clearly. It's large and it's near me. I wish you could hear me. But how can I merely go call out to someone I once loved so dearly and assume that you're not gonna notice? I loved you forever. You're quick and you're clever. I promised I'd never love anyone better. But now I'll abandon this wretched endeavor, and time marches on till you find me. I'm a brutal believer. You're a tongue-tied late teether. There's nobody neater. You're my own fire breather. I don't know your name, but I don't want to either. And how can you tell that I'm swimming? I don't know if you're reading a bit too much into the bleeding, but it's true, I would gush 2 times harder if that's what you asked me to do. If that's what you asked me to do.